In the words of the legendary Lou Gellerman, hello, dog fans, and welcome to the Sound the Siren, because everything matters, including calling a spade, and calling an Apple Cup that was gift wrapped to the Washington State Cougars, an Apple Cup that was gift wrapped to the Washington State Cougars, and something that we need to see a lot of progress from moving forward. I'm your host, Hooligan7. I'm joined tonight by DJ K. Woody and JCap. We may be joined in a bit by the Darker Knight, and we also will have a segment included in this episode with one of our colleagues from the College Huddle, and that would be Eric Scousbo from the Westlot Pirates podcast covering the Northwestern Wildcats. But gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
Doing all right. Powering through, not feeling great, but we're making it through.
A little sympathetic illness stemming from last Saturday afternoon there, JCap.
Yeah, for sure.
JCap taking shots of NyQuil tonight?
Yeah. Oh, I wish. I forgot to grab some, but it's fine.
And of course, as usual, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sound the Siren UW. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to our show. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and hit that subscribe button to get notified when we post new content. It really does help us out a lot. If you'd like to support Sound the Siren, you can do so at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/Sound the Siren Pod UW/support, and will be linked on the screen. But without further ado, it's time for beverages. I'm going to be honest, I'll go first, and tonight I'm on just Team H2O in a nice little water bottle featuring our new stickers. DJ, how about you? What do you got tonight, buddy?
Back on the White Claw. Watermelon.
Nice.
JCap, how about you? Just NyQuil or?
Just water for now. No White Claws this evening.
It's a good shout and a good call. With as frustrated and angry as I am from last Saturday, I don't think alcohol was going to help that equation at all. So we can move right on into stupid tweets. DJ, I know you had one that bears mentioning.
Yeah, I did. So our guy, Dog206, tweeted, "Can't believe Colorado Buffalo product Christian Gonzalez got cooked like that for the Jets TD." And then Oregon fan responded, which is a good tweet, by the way. Oregon fan responded, said, "Gonzo is better than any defensive prospect Washington has ever produced. LOL, stop." Okay, yeah. Gonzalez has played like 7 games in the NFL and already labeling him a better UW defensive prospect player than ever. So
Buda Baker and Trent McDuffie exist, and Vita Vea.
Yeah, Marcus Peters.
He
said, ever. He said ever. I mean, you can go back many years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lawyer Malloy. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if the Ducks are known for anything, the penalty that can most get called, sorry for, trigger warning UW fans for referencing penalties, but the frequent flag that can be called on Mallard Twitter is premature tweet ejaculation. So it's just another example of it right there.
Yeah.
JCap, how about you? Any stupid tweets that need to be recognized or laughed at?
Well, I won't necessarily call them stupid tweets, but a lot of stuff that's coming out of Wheatfield underdogs right now. They won their game. We'll talk about that, but just the engagement from a fan base that has. I put out a tweet, quote tweeting him about how they could win every Apple Cup from now until 2050 and still be 17 behind UW all time. And
Unreal.
They are losing their minds in the comments right now. It's ridiculous. So many Cougs talking about Cope harder. It's like, I'm not making excuses for the game. I'm just stating a fact, and y'all are so mad about it.
They're so sensitive after a W. It's
I know.
Weird.
It's crazy. They're playing the victim after they won, which
nobody's
is
nobody's really like, from what I've seen, Husky fans is like, oh, like, you guys got lucky. I mean, they're blaming, I don't know. Everyone's saying, yeah, you won. Like, nice
Right.
job, like giving them credit, and then they still would have like, oh, that's not enough or whatever. Like, I don't know what they want us to say. Like, they're the best team ever. Like, is that gonna make them happy? I don't get it.
I think they want us to say that they dominated us, and they didn't. And
They didn't.
No.
I think that was. I don't think they like the fact that Washington gift wrapped that football game for them and did everything it could to basically lose the game, as opposed to, like, the Cougs made the plays that they needed to win the game and minimized mistakes. Washington didn't. But that was not a Cougars just ran through the Huskies by any stretch of the imagination. Like, that's not what that was, and anybody that watches football knows that. I will also say I don't remember exactly who it was, but I've got one that got into a thread with our buddy Hood about, and was trying to call out Hood for, like, that the Cougs lived rent free in Hood's head because he'd watched the game 3 times. I'm like,
that's his own team.
It's his own team, and he watches basically everything at, like, it's like, dude, pay attention to who you're talking about. Like, Hood watches every game multiple times because he is a football fan, and like that's why we go to Hood for so much.
Especially, like, we analyze the games and stuff on the podcast every week. It's like, we're gonna rewatch the games.
Like, Coug fans don't know what rent free means, or cope. What coping means. Like, they don't know what those means. What, like, based how they're saying to us, because we're not. I said a tweet in there like, oh, cope. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what you're saying. Like, I'm not even.
What are we coping about? We're complaining about our own team and our own coaching staff, and you're telling us to cope harder. Like, we're giving you won. I put out a tweet right after the game. I said, unload the clip, Wazoo fans. You earned it. You won the game.
Exactly.
Go for it. We deserve all these tweets.
I think they like to say rent free all the time because rent's a concept that they're very familiar with, because the Cougs really don't own anything.
Facts. Oh my god. I've never really delved into their program's history, but it's been fun pulling out some receipts
won't take much time to go in that history.
Exactly.
Yeah, like every year they have a great season, they lose to us, so
shout out to Jake Dickert for winning his second Apple Cup, moving him into a tie for second place all time for Wazoo winningest Apple Cup coaches. He's one away from the lead. One away from the lead.
That's crazy. What?
And he beat Bob Gregory and the most boneheaded play call of all time. So, congratulations.
Bob Gregory. Oh, that's an asterisk.
Well, we're already talking about it, so let's talk about it. I think the list of things that we liked from Saturday is pretty short, but there is definitely some stuff that we can take away as positives. Some things that need some attention and some work. But I certainly don't want to monopolize the conversation. One of you take it away.
Let's start with the good things. Adam Muhammad is going to be nice. Adam Muhammad is going to be a highlight for the team moving forward. Damon Williams, obviously, his usage in the game, I don't know about Jed's decision-making and when he used him, but obviously the quarterback run option with him, it's going to be an effective offense moving forward. Jed screwed up the game.
If we were going to call a speed option on fourth down, I wouldn't have mind seeing Damon instead of Will on the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But as far as how it bodes for the future of the team and Damon going forward into next season and beyond, it was nice. And Giles Jackson, obviously, it's hard to say he wasn't a bright spot in that game. Yeah, I mean, there aren't a huge...
Our kicker?
Huge
money?
Yeah, that's true. Grady was on the money. Thad obviously got a pick.
Money. Period.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I think we could just do, while we're talking about it, we can just do the kind of the purple helmets this week, just in the flow of the things. And for my money, this week it's Giles, it's Grady Gross, and it's Thad. And while we're talking about it, in terms
Ephesians should have got one.
Yeah,
I'm still mad about that call.
The one thing that actually might have impacted the game in terms of, I'm not saying, like, again, and I think Coug fans had a hard time understanding the difference and the nuance of what Husky fans were saying, and that penalties had a large hand in costing the Washington Huskies this football game. Saying penalties cost UW the football game doesn't mean the refs cost UW the football game.
Right.
It's penalties that were committed and called on Washington cost UW the game. The one potentially game-changing call that definitely went in the Cougars' favor was that Ephesians Prysock interception. That ball did not move. He's a 6'4" corner with long arms and long hands and long fingers. That's an interception.
He was under that ball and it did not move.
How can they
He
overturn
touched the
that?
ground, but
It was.
I was very angry about that. I mean, it's.
I was so pissed. I was with
there's
Cougar
not
fans, and they were like, "That's an
indisputable-
interception."
Right. There's not indisputable video evidence to overturn it. And I would have been fine if they called it incomplete on the field and let it stand on the field. But the fact that they called it an interception on the field and then overturned it is insane.
Yep.
No sense at all.
For the second week in a row, I will say another kind of bright spot is for the second week in a row, we mostly kept Will pretty clean. Pass pro is continuing to be something that's not really a big area of concern thus far in the season, and that's from, all the questions we had about the offensive line going in. I think that's certainly a good sign.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I was expecting to see Will running for his life out there, and it hasn't happened really yet so far. We're about to get into conference play, and we'll talk about that as we move forward, and we're going to face some really talented defensive line teams. But the way that the offensive line has played through the first... That's true.
Going into the year.
But the first 3 weeks have been a pleasant surprise in terms of how well we've protected Will.
And the run blocking has been good. Like, yes, there's times where we get stoned for no gain, but there's also times where it's a definite positive. It's certainly, I'd give them, on the season thus far, certainly no worse than a C grade, and it's probably across the board, probably somewhere in the B range in terms of the O-line play as it stands now. I mean, like, it's not an A because, unfortunately, we've had some snap issues, and that's where the sacks have come from. But
and it seems like when our line's bad, it's like complete whiff. It's usually like pretty good, or like somebody completely whiffs on the guy and like is free.
It's completely broken protection.
So just eliminate some of those like big mistakes, and then they'll be solid along the rest of the way. I mean, got to stay healthy, but I thought the line was decent. Giles like all year. It's crazy to say, like, I mean, might be our best
24 targets, 24 catches.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's the most talented receiver on our team, but he might be our best, most reliable receiver for sure. So that's
at least Will Rogers' most reliable receiver.
Yeah, he loves it.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah. Brady Gross, like he's doing his thing out there. I mean, a couple of those or most of them, if not, were 40-yarders. Like, those aren't easy, especially college kickers. Like, 40-plus yards, like almost 50-50. And so he's been money. But, just frustrating that we couldn't convert at least one more. But at least a couple more, though, should have been going down and scoring a touchdown. Can't be settling for field goals in this day and age.
The Big Ten West doesn't exist anymore. We can't be acting like a Big Ten West team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got to convert in the red zone. I mean, we talked about it in the group chats and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to play a game where we have over 450 yards of offense, no turnovers, no sacks, and lose the game is disgusting. I mean, we can't convert in the red zone, and to commit that many penalties, to stall drives and extend drives and let Wazoo
5
score
of them on third down.
I know.
Exactly.
Everyone, I don't remember whose stat it was, but shouts to whoever it was that pointed out that every one of Washington State's drives was extended by a UW penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And none of UW scoring drives included a Wazoo penalty.
Right.
So
and you're talking about penalties, like, and not blaming the refs. I mean, I think there was one questionable PI call, but like one of the PI calls that we I forgot who it was. It kind of like threw down their receiver. And then that was third down, and they ended up scoring a touchdown. I think it might have been like
it was the Jordan Shaw one on third down.
Yeah, and that's totally unnecessary.
Went out of the pocket.
Yeah, it was totally unnecessary for him to do that. Like the guy wasn't going to have an impact on the play. Not saying the rest shouldn't have called it, but like, what was he doing? And so it's just a stupid, boneheaded play on our end.
You can see it from the perspective that Mateer was getting out of the pocket, and once he's out of the pocket, you can start to throw the guy down. But when he throws the ball, then it becomes pass interference, which is, it makes sense because, I mean, you're trying to protect against Mateer gashing you on the ground, and you have to. I mean, Hood was talking about it during the game when we were all texting. It's like some of these penalties, like EJ's pass interference, was a good penalty to take because he was beat for a touchdown.
Yeah,
and that's a good one to take. And I mean, I think going into the game, they were willing to live with some of these penalties if it meant that Mateer wasn't going to gash him on the ground, and then Mateer still gashed him on the ground.
Still gash him.
So
another somewhat good thing about the game, for the most part, until we started kind of like sitting back, but I thought our D-line was getting pressure on the quarterback for most of the game. They weren't finishing the plays. That was a not so good spot for the most part. But yeah, if that was like almost any other quarterback, we would have probably double our sacks than what we had, because they were getting some pressure. But then towards the end of the game, they're just kind of like sitting back because they don't want to get gashed by Mateer, so they're trying to avoid that. So they weren't pressuring as much. But yeah, for most of the game, they were getting some good pressure.
And without getting too far into the preview part of the episode, that's certainly something that we have to be mindful of. I've watched most of the game from Northwestern from last week, and Lausch is definitely mobile. I don't think he's quite as fast as John Mateer, but he's not slow by any stretch in the imagination either. And that is definitely something that we're going to be more mindful of. And then certainly, in a couple of weeks, we've got Alex Orji, who basically all he can do is run.
Yeah,
that name.
But like,
I'm really upset we didn't get an Orgy Penix matchup.
Oh my god,
that would have been epic.
Yeah,
with Richard Newton still on the team.
Oh man,
yes.
But like looking, not looking ahead to next week, but Ethan Kaliak-Manis from Rutgers, while a very efficient and has been one of, I think, the highest graded passers in the conference, if not the country, when being pressured or when being blitzed. He does not have the mobility that who we saw last week, who we see this week, and who we would see it, from Michigan do. So I think, again, that's going to be something that will help our defensive line get home a little more.
We're going to go through a gauntlet of mobile quarterbacks here in the next, four game stretch? Last week, this week, next week, and then Michigan.
Or not next week, but the following week.
Yeah, the following one. Yeah.
So we've started talking about the not so good stuff. So let's get into that. Certainly some situational substitutions. Damon coming in on the second to last drive of the first half when Will was in rhythm. Obviously the play call on fourth, and I think I liked Jed's response initially, and he said, yeah, that's on me and I need to be better. And then he says, oh, well, if we'd executed, and it's like, well, some of being a coach is actually understanding probably what you're likely, a brand new offensive line that you're cobbling together may do something like what happened on Saturday, which was leave the wrong guy free, and leaving that wrong guy free blows up the play. For my money, not even giving your sixth year quarterback, yes, granted different program, the flexibility to make a check in that situation if he saw something where it was a concern. I pointed it out, like, yeah, they, Washington State had one extra guy on either side of our line, but if you look at the freeze frame, the three receivers that we had split to the wide side of the field stoned their guys. If you flip that, even with speed option with Will and Jonah, it's probably more successful going to the field side. And we probably are not like, that was a ballsy call, but we won. So that just the confluence of using the timeout in that situation.
The timeout is the biggest issue to me.
And I think Noah was talking about it on their pod. That's so stupid. Like, worst case scenario, you run the play, you get stuffed at the half-yard line, 1 yard line,
or throw an incomplete, or if you go with the call that was made, which was a throw to Giles, if it's incomplete,
they get the ball at the 1, and then they had 3.
They're at the 1.5 yard line, and Steve Belichick dials up a pressure, and you get a safety in the ball.
They put the whole game on the line on that one play.
Yep.
Because even if we didn't do those offsides or whatever, and like we stopped them, we would have had to go. We had 20 seconds at most, maybe. Like that's not. They got to do like a Hail Mary some point. And
Yep.
so
It's unrealistic, but it gave you a shot at least.
Yeah. But if we stop them, we would have had, I think, around a minute or 50 seconds of using all 3 timeouts, and that's plenty of time to go. Because they'll probably, if they're punting from the end zone, they're probably going to punt it to our 50. So
yeah, and let's also call a spade a spade. There was a little bit of a grab on Denzel on that the second down play to the end zone.
Yeah, the shot to the end zone. Yeah. Agreed.
I mean,
and then Denzel.
If you're on the other side of that
play.
I don't have an issue with Denzel on the third down play, because in that situation, and if you listen to that he did what he was coached, but he's been coached by the staff to do in that situation, to not, particularly and with the conditions, because it had started raining in the second half, in that situation where you still have a down left. They and I kind of actually agree with the coaching staff in this one of not trying to stretch the ball out. Because if
what are you worried about, turnover there or what?
Yeah. And that was what Fish talked about it, I believe, either in the coach's show or in the press conference after, that he did what he was coached, what we tell them to do. It was kind of one of those things of like, okay, if you score, it's like, hey, don't do that. Oh, okay, nice job. But like, he did what he was coached to do and not stretch the ball out because they had another down in play.
I get it. I don't agree.
It out
I think
and it gets knocked out, it's either recovered by the Cougars or it's a touchback.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that, I guess, but I don't know.
As a competitor, I'm going for that thing. I'm going for that end zone.
I mean, even if you're like, if you look at where he was at the point that he stepped out of bounds, he wouldn't have even had to stretch out the ball. All he would have to do is fall forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was close enough to the goal line that he wouldn't have had to put the ball in harm's way at all. He would have just had to fall down.
To get to the end zone would have been less than the length of his entire body.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been 5 feet.
Yeah, that's more so my issue, because I can definitely agree with not putting the ball in harm's way in that situation and in such a high leverage spot. But how close he was to the goal line without having to actually stretch the ball out with one hand, that's the issue that I have with it more so.
I've had too many situations with prior teams. Like, I mean, one situation that comes to mind is when against Oregon, what year was it? 2018, 2019, when we lost in overtime because we missed the field goal. Like, putting everything on the line for on one play. So like, you don't go for the dive there. Okay, we got to score. We have one play to score. If you don't get it, then like that messes up your chances a lot. And like that play I was talking about with Chris Peterson, just going for the field goal, and instead of trying to get closer or get a touchdown or something, you're just settling. And so I'm just never a fan of like having it all decide on like one type of play, and that's kind of what you're doing there in that situation. And even though we should have converted that fourth, it's still a gamble.
And evidently, Chris Peterson was a fan of the call, according to the conversation.
Dog talk with Brock. With
a dog talk with Brock, and I'm sorry, like, I have a lot of respect for Coach Fish. I have a ton of respect for Coach Peterson, but these gentlemen do have let's just say it, a propensity for trying to out clever as opposed to just out football.
Spider-Man meme for both of them.
And we haven't even talked about the fact that we have Jonah Coleman, who
was 5'9" and 230 pounds, who we literally have seen against his own teammate run through the chest of a defensive tackle.
You're
like a
yard and a half away from the goal line, and you can't just let him go up the gut. If we go up the gut and we get stuffed, I can live with that.
Yeah,
I absolutely can too, because again, it's 1st and 10 Washington State from inside the 1.5 yard line.
Exactly.
That should have been the check down. The check down is handball to Jonah if they didn't think what option was going to work. And if anything, that gives you at least 50% chance of not greater to score.
And it's trusting your personnel and knowing your personnel. Running speed option with Will Rogers is the opposite of knowing your personnel. And if you run the ball with Jonah and it doesn't work, you preserve the timeout, you play to the strengths of your team, you back them up at their own goal line. The thought process behind calling a timeout into a speed option with no ability to check out of it with your non-mobile quarterback to the short side, it's like there's so many boxes that you check.
And that was their gotta have it call.
And that was your gotta have it call. Yeah.
Like, that's just, again, it's an obsession with being without thinking your opposition, as opposed to like, you know what? Great football coaches like, hey, you know, we're going to do what we do. Like, I'll give Sark credit. When we had this situation in some crunch times during Sark's career, I think about God's play at Cal. What did we do? We put Chris Polk behind, I think, Paul Homer, and just dive to the strong side and bam into the end zone. I mean, like, and particularly when the strength of your offensive line is center to right tackle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, no. Or like, I also think I could even give the coaching staff a little bit of credit and say that if Quentin Moore doesn't get hurt, I've got a lot.
That's a different scenario.
Okay, entirely. Run speed option behind
your best blocking tight end.
Another lineman, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a different situation, but like in the context, not a great call, and in the context of goodness knows how many penalties we'd already incurred in this game, it was, and penalties seem like, yes, there's some of it's on the players, but it's on coaching. Like, you have to coach your guys to be better in that situation. Like,
yeah. The one thing I say, or the one other thing I guess I'll say about the officials is like, yeah, I mean, vast majority of those penalties were the right calls against us, but they don't want to call nothing against the other team. I'm just saying, like, there's some blatant holds on offense in particular, I would say. But I mean, that's not the reason why we lost. I'm just saying, like, there could have been more.
It's been the case for 2 weeks because Eastern Michigan was holding left, right, and center, and we weren't getting calls there either. So it's
right.
If you should, I mean, and it's been an epidemic of it. I know, like, I guess in the Florida A&M game, I haven't heard about it, but evidently they called. I don't know whose team it got called on, but somebody got called, and the call was upheld for targeting, and he hit the guy in the ass. Helmet to ass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, targeting is largely to protect the tackler as opposed to the ball carrier, but
right.
Just to say, it's an ongoing issue in college football.
Yeah.
I've already moved on.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on and make some big predictions. The first one, we've got a ranked on ranked matchup to start the weekend tomorrow night on Fox at 5:00. The number 24 Illinois Fighting Illini traveling into Lincoln to play the number 22 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska is a 7.5 point favorite with the over/under at 42.5. What do you gentlemen think of this one?
Before we get into this, I was tracking from last week. I need to give a little shout out to DJ. Was our number one projector last week, 11-2 record. Only missed the Apple Cup, and then you picked Virginia over Maryland. But other than that, you were the best. Yeah. And then tied, 4-way tie for last place was me, Hooligan, Hood, and Darker Knight, all at 9-4.
That's still not bad.
Or no, excuse me. Me, Hooligan, Hood, and Tugs at 9-4. Darker Knight was at 10-3. And then the fan poll that I ran tied with DJ at 11-2. So,
ooh, nice. Okay. Well done, listeners and Twitter followers of Sound the Siren and JCap. I think I need to get negative credit for calling and saying that Purdue was going to beat Notre Dame straight up, because
I was the only one on the pod last week that picked Notre Dame. Just putting that out there.
Well, yeah, well done. That was nasty. So let's talk Illinois, Nebraska. DJ, what do you think about this one in Lincoln tomorrow night?
Yeah, I got Nebraska. I think they cover too. I think they probably win by about 2 scores, if I was going to guess, 10, 14 points in that range. They're looking pretty good. I mean, I want to say I'm praying on the downfall, but their quarterback doing all the Mahomes stuff makes me cringe a little bit. So I do hope that they lose, but I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I'll go with Nebraska as well. I'll say 10 points. I'll take the over. But yeah, I agree. Rayola is doing the most with this Mahomes cosplay.
Yeah.
It's a little much.
I just can't root against Nebraska right now because they've been down so bad for so long.
That's true.
So
That's true.
It's
It's
just
good to
kind of
see
fun.
him get some wins.
yeah, some wins. Let's not go crazy here and say that they're back.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
first up, 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, some guy named Marshall is traveling to the shoe to play Ohio State. Ohio State is a 39.5 point favorite with the over-under
That's a
at
crazy
52
line.
and a
That
half.
is crazy.
The Thundering Herd is not thundering so much this year.
39.5 point favorite with a 52 over under is so funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. I'll go first on this one, and I think Ohio State covers that over all by their lonesome, and I think they cover that spread as well. Yeah, I think this is Ohio State, and it is kick your feet up by probably 5 minutes into the third quarter, Buckeyes, because
Yeah.
this ain't it.
Yeah, I think Oregon State. Ohio State hits that over under by themselves by the end of the third quarter. So yeah, it's Ohio State by a million.
Ohio State. For sure.
Also a 9 o'clock kick, this one on the Big Ten Network, the Charlotte 49ers traveling in to Bloomington, Indiana to face the Hoosiers fresh off their drubbing of the Bruins at the Rose Bowl. Indiana is a 28.5 point favorite, over under at 48.5.
Indiana wins big.
Hoosiers.
I'll never root for or I'll never pick a team named the 49ers in my life. So
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Indiana wins, covers, and continues to spread. I think to even further exacerbate what right now is a pretty extensive disparity between the points that they have scored and their opposition has scored. Indiana scored a lot of points. I think they're 140 plus for something in 3 games this year, and it's basically a handful that their opposition. I don't think that trend changes this week. So Indiana big, a good FCS
like
team.
Oh, sorry. Oh no, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
Oh, I was moving on to the next game. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Talking about, I think they come close alone covering that over. I probably won't
Over-under.
quite get there, but yeah, they'll probably hit 40 and get very close.
Yep. A good FCS team travels into College Park to play Maryland. In this case, there is a line on this game, even though it's FCS against FBS, but it is football, not basketball. Villanova going to Maryland. Maryland is a 17.5 point favorite, over under at 43.5.
Maryland. Like you said, this is football, not basketball.
Yep.
We're playing the wrong sport for you, Villanova.
In this instance, I don't think Maryland covers, though. I think it's a 2-touchdown game. I just don't think it gets to 17.5.
I have no idea on that one, so I'm just gonna go with Maryland.
Yeah,
just with the
I can't. I can't make a call.
12:30 on the Big Ten Network. Kent State traveling into Happy Valley to play number 10 Penn State. Penn State is a 49-point favorite with the over-under at 55.5.
That's funnier than the Marshall Ohio State one.
Is that Kent State's FBS, right?
They are.
That's
where we got Don James from.
Yeah, 50 points. Wait, hold on. So, the over and under is 55.5, and they're favored by 49.
By 49, yeah.
49-6. Oh wow.
Yeah, Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State.
And it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to win by a lot.
I think they're going to win by a lot, but I don't think they cover.
I would not touch that bet. I have no idea.
James Franklin will not, if they're up big, they're not going to continue. No, that's just not who that team is.
That's true, though.
Here is a big one. A ranked on shouldn't be ranked. Number 11 USC traveling into Ann Arbor to play number 18 Michigan, and the aforementioned Alex Orji getting the start at quarterback. It's a 12:30 p.m. game on CBS. USC is a 5-point favorite, over under at 43.5.
USC wins and covers. Alex
Really?
Orji can't play quarterback.
Man.
Alex Orji is going to run the ball and not be able to do anything else. Colston Loveland apparently has an undisclosed injury potentially. USC wins, I think, by 2 touchdowns.
Well, that's a lot of confidence.
I've been talking about this game with my brother, the Michigan student, a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have yeah, they're not winning this game.
Yeah. And that whole thing about USC actually has a defensive coordinator that's competent and is not named Alex Grinch.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna, like, Denton Lynn defenses could struggle against good teams and good offenses. Michigan is not a good offense.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think Michigan's defense might give SC's offense some pause. Michigan's defense is not what it was by any stretch of the imagination, and there's just too much. This is SC. DJ, do you concur on this one? Do you think SC covers?
I don't know if they cover. I think it would be closer. We think maybe they do like a backdoor cover at the end, but I think USC wins. It's hard for me to trust Lincoln Riley winning big games. Not that this is like a huge game, but going to Michigan while they're ranked, coming off a natty, like it's still a big game. And yeah, you can never trust that guy with those things. But I think their talent wins out. They're the better team. I think they do win, but it's not like a decisive victory, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing about Lincoln going into the opener against LSU. I mean,
that's true.
A standalone
Maybe
game.
It's a different year. Yeah.
It's different because, I mean, Lincoln with a defense is an animal that we haven't seen.
It's a novelty for sure.
Could you imagine if he had a defense? I think I said this in the pod before. Like, if he had a defense prior years,
defense
like
with the Caleb Williams team last year and the year before,
or 2 years ago, natty close to it at Oklahoma, they're winning one. Or close, or getting to a championship, or they're winning a playoff game for sure.
Alex Grinch's defense for that many years, he would have had a national championship easily.
Yeah.
Yep. Another 12:30 kick. This is SC's crosstown rival traveling into Baton Rouge. UCLA at number 16 LSU. LSU is a 22.5-point favorite, over under at 56.5.
LSU by a lot.
LSU.
UCLA is not good.
I think LSU.
Do you know what? Sorry, I was just gonna say. Do you know what the low price to get into that game is? $12.
Sick.
Yeah, it's like that's. I mean, it's LSU and UCLA. They're not like Alabama or nothing, but I thought it'd be better than that. Yeah,
$12 is insane.
Yeah.
I think UCLA is probably going to be petitioning to head back to the Pac-12 at the rate they're going.
Send us to the Mountain West. Stay in the Big Ten for basketball. Not football.
Well, they've got to stay in the Big Ten just so that they can pay their alimony.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think LSU wins. I think the LSU covers. I don't think it hits, but I would say I think this is on the under. I don't think LSU
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That great this year, but I think that UCLA is just bad. I think LSU can win this game like 42-3, and so it doesn't threaten the over, but it's a blowout. Another 12:30 kick. This one on the ACC network. Our next opponent, following this weekend, goes to Blacksburg to play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a 3.5-point favorite at home, over under at 44.5.
Well, they always say that home field advantage is a 3-point favorite. So, I mean, this is basically a pick'em game.
Tough place to play, though.
Yeah, it's true. Crowd. It's very true. I'll go with Virginia Tech for that reason. I'm
probably just going with this prediction just because this is who I want to win, but I'm going to go with Rutgers. If I were to probably put money down, I might put on Virginia Tech, but for the sake of I want Rutgers to, if Rutgers wins, they could be ranked playing against us next week, and they're feeling good about themselves. So, I'm going to say I'm going with Rutgers, I think.
I agree. I think I think Virginia Tech has been very up and down this year. They were kind of a chic under the radar pick in the ACC, and you open the season with a loss to Vanderbilt.
That was awesome.
Not great, Bob. Yeah, I'm going to go with Rutgers in this one as well. Moving on to the afternoon and evening games, Iowa traveling up to Huntington Bank Stadium for the Floyd of Rosedale. It's Iowa at Minnesota. Iowa is a 3-point favorite on the road, over under at 35.5. Who's taking home the bronze pig?
Man,
35.5 is crazy.
Yeah, that is
insane.
crazy though. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm gonna take Iowa. I think they cover, but I'd take the under.
Yeah.
Oh man. We're talking like a 16-13 type game because I'm not expecting
That's
some field
what these
goals.
games are. Like
Yeah.
this was the game last year that an illegal signal cost Iowa a game-winning punt return touchdown. And I think it was like 17-12 or like 16-13 was the final score. Like these are not. This is not. Washington USC from last season. That's basically the Washington USC game from last season is basically the complete antithesis of Iowa Minnesota games.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iowa as well, and I'm going to say 14-9. I'm taking the under also.
Oh, man. Damn, okay, yeah, this is definitely a toss-up. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to go with the same mindset I had earlier. I'm going to go for Iowa. I'm going to say Iowa wins, strictly based on, like, a rooting interest because we play Iowa. I want to, again, I want to see these teams, like, I don't know, ranked or whatever when we face them. Hopefully that we can win. So I'm going to go with Iowa, but I don't feel good about it.
All right. Moving on to a 5 o'clock kick on the ACC network. Babushka, otherwise known as Jonathan Smith, takes his Michigan State Spartans into Boston College. BC is a 6.5 point favorite, and the over/under is at 45.5.
I don't know that I have a strong take one way or the other on this game, but I'll go with Boston College.
Yeah, I think they've looked pretty stout. They gave Mizzou all they could have handled last week. I'm certainly I'll take Boston College as well. I think they cover. Over/under, I think probably the under, but that's about the depth of my analysis in this one.
I'll say Boston College too. Michigan State has not looked good. I do think at some point John Smith's a good coach. I think they'll work it out a little bit at some point, whether it's this game or a couple weeks that they'll start looking better. But yeah, I'm gonna go Boston College.
Yep. Last game of the weekend. This one is on the CW, and two teams that got absolutely taken out to the woodshed last weekend. And that is Purdue traveling on the road to the other team in the state of Oregon, that being the Beavers. Beavers are a 4.5 point favorite, with the over/under at 50.5.
Give me Purdue, just because I want to watch the digital dam meltdown online again.
Oh man.
The digital dam breaks, that. Part 2.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think my strongest sentiment on this one is the under. I don't think Purdue bounces back from getting the holy crap kicked out of them last week, so I'm going to take Oregon State, but I don't think it threatens 50.5.
All right. I'm going to go with Purdue only because one reason. I think mine and Hooligans, all of our predictions have been the same. So I want to break the potential tiebreaker maybe with
You
this
guys
one. So
are identical so far.
yeah, I'll go with Purdue just for that reason. But again, if I were to bet, I'll probably bet on Oregon State win.
I do want to point out one thing in terms of the ticket prices that we mentioned earlier with UCLA LSU game. That's not the, according to ESPN, the cheapest game that can be found in the conference this week. If you're in the vicinity of Happy Valley and want to see Penn State play, you could do so for as low as $6.
Sick. It's like a Mariner game.
Yeah. They had $1 tickets the other day. Mariner game.
Speaking of stupid things,
Should give them away.
This is not a word I like to say a lot, but Julio, in that situation, if it ever comes up again, duck.
Oh my god. Between that and the Robles attempted steal home with the bases loaded in a 3-0 count with 2 outs.
That's funny.
I hate this team. And I hate that I let myself get roped in every single year. But
this is probably the most epic Mariners marinering of all time. I don't want to completely take the podcast,
especially
off the rails,
last night with everyone that you needed to lose lost, and then you did that. Come on. Anyway,
all right. Well, before we get into our game preview of Northwestern, we're going to be joined by one of our colleagues from the College Huddle Network, and that is Eric Scuzz from the Westlot Pirates. We will have that segment, and then I will be back with DJ and JCap to give you our in-depth thoughts on the matchup with Northwestern. And here on the Sound the Siren podcast, we're now happy to be joined by one of our colleagues from the College Huddle Network, from the Westlot Pirates podcast, Eric Scuzz. Eric, how are you doing this evening?
Awesome. I got a brisket on the grill. It's high school homecoming tomorrow in the my hometown. Well, the town I live, not my hometown, but yeah, pretty fired up for this game on Saturday night too.
Nice. Yeah. Both good things. Some good football Saturday and some good brisket tomorrow. Sounds like a good thing. Well, we'll dig right into it before we get into things that are specific to the matchup on Saturday at Husky Stadium. Certainly, Northwestern is. It's been a while since Northwestern and Washington have gotten together on the football field, but certainly would love to just hear kind of from you. Maybe the top 3 favorite things for you about Northwestern as a whole, and certainly the Northwestern football program.
Sure. Let's address the 800-pound gorilla. It's a different world the last 18 months than it's been the prior 20-ish years. So
sure.
I think the thing that John and Sam, who do the Westlot Pirates podcast with me, and the thing the 3 of us talk about all the time is just the nature of the Northwestern football community. We're a small school. We are a small group of folks that really love and follow this team. And when we show up and tailgate, we're next to the softball team. We met the head baseball coach last week. We are the folks that we talk with on Twitter. We're seeing in the stadium and in the parking lot. And it's a small, tight community that runs the gamut from amateur dads in the suburbs like us who like to podcast up to folks that are covering the Olympics in Paris last summer, and it's a really, really fun community to be a part of. So that's probably top of the list. Number 2,
cool.
I was a freshman in school in 1998, and so I didn't see a win till my sophomore year. I didn't see a bowl victory until I was 10 years out of school. Northwestern football is a labor of love. That community is part of it, but there's another element where it doesn't take a lot to get excited and fired up for this team. My wife went to Notre Dame. I'm married into a pretty intense Notre Dame family. One loss, and the excitement goes out of the room. The bubbles burst, etc. And we get to live and die for 6 every year, and that's awesome for us. It's not what a lot of college football programs are after and whatnot, but it does make season after season a lot of fun to dig into and have fun with. So, and then I don't know. Lastly, like our podcast was born on the back of a longstanding tailgate that we had in the west lot of Ryan Field for many, many years. And just, I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on as we follow this team, and one of the things that, depending how deep we get into the weeds here with Northwestern, is just the history of the guys that have come through Northwestern, the coaches, the moments that I remember from games in 2000 or 2002 or 2004, like that really colors our experience. We go way back, and we like to help people connect the dots when things go off the rails against Duke. That was brutal a couple weeks ago, but I'll be honest, I've seen that tale like 7 times in my fandom, and it doesn't hurt as much. And then the highs can still be just as high. So we like to steep ourselves in the history of this program, and we think that helps us really understand what's going to come to bear for this team.
We can relate to a little bit on that as Seattle fans, especially a lot of us are Mariner fans, and so we see that every year. I mean, to an extent, Husky
Mariners
too.
fans, Seahawks fans, the Apple Cup last week, which we're going to do a lot of ranting
Sure.
on in the episode that this segment is a part of. As I believe David Woods of the podcast of Champions referred to it as Jed Fish's, another one of Jed Fish's piano falling on his head moments. But I think we corresponded a little bit in setting this up this week that UW had a little bit of its own era, similar to kind of the nascency of your fandom in the kind of the mid-aughts, where anything and everything that the program could do wrong, we were. We were recruiting pretty well, but that was basically about it. But kind of turning the page into this game on Saturday at 4:00 at Husky Stadium. As you look at, what do you see as the big maybe top 3 keys of the game for Northwestern to have success in the game, and then on the flip side of that, maybe a couple top 2 or 3 concerns for you?
Yeah, our so the absolute best piece of our team right now is our defensive line. We rotated roughly 12 to 14 guys through the rotation last year to great effect. This defense stunned even the 3 of us who are rather optimistic as fans. We didn't think Northwestern had the horses last season to do much on defense, and then they put together an absolute crack defensive line. Christian Smith came over from South Dakota State as the D-line coach, and has just done an incredible job with that room. And so what you see Northwestern doing game after game after game is harrying quarterbacks without elite pass rushers. And it's because we have a room that goes from a ton of atypical guys in this room. We've got your 3-4 prototypical rush ends, guys that could line up at linebacker and sometimes do for us, but then find themselves 3-point stance on 3rd down, etc. So we've got a grouping for every situation, and these guys plays with such a high motor and such tenacity throughout the course of the game that I alluded to that Duke game. We harried Malik Murphy for 3 quarters. The guy could barely do anything. It wasn't until they went to warp speed mode that they negated our rotation on defense. So that's the strength of this team. They're backed up by what we think is the best linebacker in the Big Ten, Xander Mueller. Mueller was graded by PFF this week as the number 5 run stopper in the country, best in the Big Ten at this stage. He should have 2 interceptions already to this point in the year. He's got probably 4 or 5 passes defensed. I mean, the guy shows up in every statistical category, and that front 7 as a result is the strength and the bedrock of our team. We have a young secondary who has shown a lot of mettle the last couple weeks. We think we're pretty healthy on the defensive side, so this is definitely where our bread's going to be buttered in the game. Flipping to the offense, our running game is really strong. We've seen Zach Lujan come over from South Dakota State, back-to-back national championships with the Jackrabbits. Runs an excellent offense. Offense is a thing that has eluded Northwestern for the better part of 2 decades. And we haven't seen it all come together yet, but we got a lot of flashes last week with the switch from Mike Wright, the Vanderbilt transfer, to Jack Lausch, a sophomore, a guy that was a real gamer in the Chicago high school football a couple seasons ago. he has only, shown it against Eastern Illinois, so we've got to see him step up against the much tougher competition we'll see this weekend. But we have a lot of hope and optimism kind of riding on those two components. You're going to see Northwestern primarily run the ball. We run duo all the time. It's our bread and butter, and then riff off of that with RPOs, with outside zone. Cam Porter wears our number 1 jersey. That's kind of a point of pride in the program to get awarded that jersey, and he's going to try to attack the Washington defense. He's tailor-made for this scheme. He will make hay as he goes out through the game, but the big question is our offensive line. That's it was the big question coming into the season, and we had 2 games of just about perfect O-line play, and then 1 game where it was a real mess, and that was against Duke. And we know that there is at least, we think, 1 starter who's out. Nick Herzog, one of the guard positions, has been dinged up the last 2 games. We don't know if he'll be back this week, but that's the big problem for us. If our O-line plays without penalties, if our O-line plays clean and executes their reads correctly, our offense has a real chance to do some damage. We're not going to put up 30 or 40 points a game, I'm going to be honest with y'all, but we think we can control the game if they execute effectively. If they don't, it's going to be rough sledding for Northwestern for sure.
Yeah. From a running back standpoint, I think this one's going to be a lot of fun because, at least in terms of the starters, and there's definitely some depth for both teams. Certainly, I was been impressed from what I've seen of Joseph Hyman. Definitely got some wheels to him. But at the starters, it's going to be a little bit of a battle of the bowling balls that have some jets and some similarities there between Cam Porter and Jonah Coleman on the Washington side. And
Thanks.
anything else?
Sorry. Him saying penalties just give me PTSD from last week.
You guys are number 3 in the country right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we've got a real warm welcome from the Big Ten refs because I think we've had Big Ten refs for both of our last 2 games, and that was special and kind of no excuses. We were hearing it from some Cougar fans about like, oh, well, what about all the, if you're complaining about the penalties in this game, what about the penalties that could have been called in the Apple Cup last year? And I'm like, yes, that can happen in every game. And we had some long conversations, and I had to make a distinction this week about when we were pointing out penalties as a big reason the Huskies lost that game. The penalties and UW committing those penalties was a big reason, not the refs themselves calling the penalties that, there weren't really many that UW, that was a light call. At least this week.
I've definitely never experienced questionable Big Ten refereeing in Ann Arbor or Columbus. I have no idea what that might be like.
Can't wait.
We had a long history in our former conference of we'd get homered at home.
Yeah,
especially more in basketball a little than football. But any other things that you'd say is a concern, or kind of anything that you're particularly curious to see? Maybe a little, both on the field or just watching the game from a distance, seeing your team come into Husky Stadium this week.
Yeah, the thing. So we do a pretty deep dive on every team coming into the year, and we've been doing it for quite a number of years now. We feel pretty good about the things that we dig up on teams, and the most obvious thing with Washington was losing all of your starters. Obviously, you brought Jonah Coleman over from almost all. Well, you brought Jonah Coleman over from Arizona. Obviously, Rogers comes from Mississippi State. I recall there's a wideout that came from Cal who was a starter there.
Yep, Jeremiah Hunter.
But the O-line has been reconstructed from nothing, and that combined with I'll say Will Rogers is not particularly fleet of foot. Doesn't seem to run or move much.
Might be news to Jedfish, but I would agree. But yeah. I think we all agree with you.
we both have rough lateral QB run plays on the goal line to our name thus far this year. But it seems that whether it's the scheme or Rogers or the line itself, that y'all have done a pretty good job to this point. I think maybe gave up 2 sacks against Washington State, very few in the prior couple games. This felt like a real opportunity for Northwestern and a real weakness or potential weakness for Washington. But where do you guys stand? Do you feel like that's been solved? or is it? Do you not feel like they've been totally tested yet?
I don't know necessarily that they've been completely tested yet. I think a lot of, going back the last couple of weeks, more of the sacks that we've incurred were issues with the snap where Will just fell on the ball and it got tallied as a sack. He has not been really, really under a ton of duress, and so the line has done a nice job. One of the we've talked about it on a couple of our episodes about like that the returning starters thing, and it's like I think we're in a new era of college football where
Sure.
Yes, of course, would Washington fans to a man, to a woman, everyone out there, would we love to have Michael Penix and those three receivers and most of the team that we had last year back? Obviously. But we have a number of guys, Jonah Coleman included, that played for this staff at Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
One thing on the subject of the offensive line that Brendan Carroll has shown kind of a consistency to do is they were not, of course, dealing with, kind of world-beating talent when they arrived at Arizona, and they've had pretty good O-line plays. They developed, kind of an under-the-radar guy into a first-round pick in this last draft. They've had a knack for stitching it together. And the line is getting a little bit healthier. Landon Hatchett has started to play a little more, and he played 9 games for us last year. It has been certainly like there were one of the guys that's on our podcast who wasn't able to attend the Eastern Michigan game was sending like screen grabs during the game of Eastern Michigan and showing how clean the pocket was that Will was throwing from. So it's been certainly like I was on, to talk to the College Huddle Network. I was on with Zach Guggenheim on the Big Ten Football Talk podcast and said the biggest question for Washington is the line play. It's O-line, it's D-line. I think till it hasn't been completely answered yet, but I think we're more confident in it now than certainly than we were 3 or 4 weeks ago. DJ, how about you? Anything else that you'd add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's solved by any means, but it feels like it's better than a lot of our expectations were. I mean, it doesn't mean it's anywhere close to where it was last year, which was, I mean, arguably the best O-line in the whole college football. But yeah, I mean, it's been serviceable. It's been just fine. I mean, yeah, but the competition, we haven't seen the best competition yet. No slight to Washington State, who obviously beat us, but yeah, so it's still yet to be determined. But I think it's a little bit better than what most of us thought it would be.
If our D line cannot pressure Will Rogers, that feels like a pretty bad a pretty bad deal for us. That feels like our biggest edge in this game potentially. And if it doesn't come to fruition, we're probably not going to be as competitive as we think we can be.
Have you heard anything on the health of, I believe it's Anto Saka?
Yeah, we have not. Northwestern is pretty close to the vest when it comes to that sort of stuff. So Saka didn't play last week, and they just keep saying he'll be back soon. So we know it's not season-ending, but that's about all we know at this stage.
Is that O-line or D-line?
He's D-line.
Okay.
Saka is, I believe he had like a 20% pressure rate week 1. I mean, so he only plays 30 or 40 snaps a game. He's not out there every single play, but the guy is just unreal. He's just unreal. And this is what I was talking about, the situational nature of we have such a deep rotation on D-line. They know how to deploy these guys. We have another dude who's cut from a very similar cloth, Kenny Soares. So if Saka's not out there, you'll see Kenny Soares. Aiden Hubbard racked up 6 sacks last year. So there are plenty of other players, but if Saka can't play, I mean that's obviously a huge weapon off the table.
Yeah, actually, and there's some similarities defensively because with Steve Belichick now, our defensive coordinator, he's shown that he likes to bring it from different pressure from different areas. I think we have one of the higher, if not, amongst the highest like blitz rates in the country, and we'll do something very similar. And like you'll see 2 or 3 tackles or 2 tackles and an edge rotate out in the middle of a drive and just try and come in waves. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time, but don't want to let you go quite yet, and just wanted to see where can Husky fans find you and the Westlot Pirates podcast if they want to hear more about Northwestern and you and your crew's insight into the Wildcats.
Sure. Yeah. So we're pretty much everywhere, and Thankfully, we've got Westlot Pirates. We've got the market cornered on that tag everywhere. So at Westlot Pirates, whether that's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, etc. WestlotPirates.com. You can obviously find us on the College Huddle as well. And I think Twitter's probably where we're most active. We're most engaged. But you can find us, connect with us pretty much everywhere. So. And then if you happen to find yourself in Evanston, give us a shout. We are this year tailgating in what we refer to the West Tech lot. It's across the street from the big tech building at Northwestern. As we get to play in this very, very unique and cool atmosphere right on campus, which is something none of us ANU fans have really ever experienced in this lifetime. So that is where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Best of luck to Northwestern the rest of the way. We certainly have a fond spot in our hearts for purple teams. Just we can't wish you the best of luck this Saturday.
Yeah, fair enough. Same to y'all. Welcome to the Big Ten. Nice to have some more purple brethren, and we'll flip back to pulling for you guys after this weekend's over.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Enjoy that
Cheers,
brisket.
guys.
And thanks again to Scuzz for jumping on and telling us a little bit more about Northwestern. But let's now dig into what we think of the coming matchup on Saturday against Northwestern. We'll quickly, I'll touch on the line and the over-under. As it stands now, we are an 11.5 point home favorite with the over-under at 42.5. DJ, how about you? What do you think? What do you expect? What do you hope to see on Saturday? And what are your keys to the game as you look at it?
I want our defense to be able to consistently be able to stop the run game, whether that's with the quarterback or running back. We have some instances where we look decent there, but other times where we haven't, in particular a lot of last week. We're not facing a quarterback that can run like that every week. So obviously I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, I just want to see us from beginning to end be able to control the line of scrimmage, especially on defensive line. And so, yeah, I feel like if we do that on defense, if our defense holds them to, not a lot of yards, I don't know, 125, 130 under that, then we're going to win by a good amount. But, this is probably, I don't know. I was going to say it's their biggest test, but WSU is decent too.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Or it's our first big test.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, that's what I hope for. I want to see us move the ball, spread the ball around more on offense with our receivers. Rogers likes to dial in on Giles Jackson and Boston a lot. And so obviously we have Jeremiah Hunter, who's as capable as anyone on as a receivers to get the ball. And I couldn't see it from watching from TV, but people that are at the game saw that he was open a lot, and just maybe he's not looking his way, or maybe plays not called for him, and getting some other younger receivers more involved too, if possible. So on offense, I'd like us to spread the ball around more if we're able to. And do you want a prediction right now, or is that?
We'll come back to the predictions. Jacob, how about you? Your keys, things that you're looking for on Saturday.
I would definitely agree with spreading the ball around a little bit more on offense in the passing game. Whether it is to the other receivers, we definitely do need to get Jeremiah Hunter involved a lot more. We saw him at Cal making a lot of spectacular catches, stretching the field vertically, 50-50 balls, and that's really his skill set, is going up and attacking the ball. And I don't feel like any of the plays that we've called for him, except for his touchdown at Eastern Michigan, or any of the times that he's gotten the ball thrown to him, have really been in that scenario. He did have the one where Will kind of let him a little too far out of bounds, and still give him kind of a shot to catch the ball, but I'd like to see him kind of attack down the field a little bit more, but then also involving Decker DeGraff a little bit more. Came out that I think the PFF had him as one of the top graded true freshmen in the country right now. So seeing him get involved more, and I want to see a little bit less personnel switching mid-drive, particularly at quarterback. I don't have a problem with Damon getting a series here, a series there. I feel like it's just so disjointed to bring him in middle of a series, especially on a drive right before halftime. You need points to double up before and after halftime, like we saw in the Apple Cup. And switching, especially right after Will made a pretty significant scramble, got us a good chunk play. He's in rhythm. I don't want to see Jed throwing Damon in there just to throw Damon in there.
It's an entirely different game if we put 7 points on the board in that situation. That's 20
even
to
3
10
points.
going into half.
If you put 3 points on the board, like it's a very different ball game completely. And
it seems like, I'll add one more thing. It seems like they have, well, I mean, obviously they have a game plan to bring him in, but it's like they know they have an exact point where they're bringing him in, where it should be like, okay, maybe they do it when we had a couple drives that stalled out, and then bring a change of pace in there for a drive or something. And yeah, like you said, maybe not in the middle of a drive too.
Yeah,
so
and
they should
brought him in that drive right before the half.
Yeah.
Will had the scramble. They had a 3-yard run or 4 or 5-yard run, and then they brought Damon in on second down. So it was like literally mid-series. And it didn't make any sense at all. And then you bring him in to throw a screen to Jonah, which didn't, like the play call even for Damon made no sense. And I would like to see them just roll with Will, and if it stalls out, it stalls out, and then you go to Damon, and that's fine. It's just, it feels so like disjointed and unnatural. The way
it's like they're pushing.
They've been trying to work Damon in.
Yep. And you're not wrong that it completely does change the context of the game, because even if we get 3 points in that situation, the fourth down doesn't happen because we're kicking a field goal. Because
because it would have been a 2-point game. We can kick a field goal to win from the 1-yard line,
and then hold them on the ensuing drive.
Exactly. It changes the entire complexion of the game if we just rolled with Will there, and taking him out of rhythm like that just made no sense to me at all. But to touch on DJ's other thing, the defensive line, the consistency with the interior pressure, I think is a huge thing. The first couple of drives of the game, we actually saw some pretty positive things out of Jamon Parker and Jacob Bandes in the Apple Cup, which was nice. I mean, we haven't seen a ton of plays out of Jacob Bandes for his Husky career, but it was nice to see him get in the backfield a little bit. So the consistency there and continuing to contain another mobile quarterback on the edges and in the interior is going to be big for me. And we haven't really had a too much of a test on defense in terms of the passing game for the most part so far. I don't think it's going to be a real big test with Northwestern, but
they have some pieces, and I think certainly Lausch is, from what I've seen, and I've watched parts of their game against Duke with Wright as the quarterback. I watched at least like first half or the 3/4 of their game against Miami of Ohio, and then I've watched basically everything until they put it away last week against Eastern Illinois. He was definitely a much different quarterback in the second half of that game as he was in the first half last week. They've got some weapons outside. Are they absolute game breakers? No. But AJ Henning is is certainly a nice receiver. Bryce Kurtz is a good player. I don't necessarily think they've got anybody that we have to be overly concerned about at the tight end position. But one thing that did kind of stand out, and this was something that Scuzz brought up when DJ and I spoke with him in our previous segment, is that there is some question on the O-line and some questions in their secondary. And so one of the things that I think is going to be a key piece of it is that and Jacob, to your point, is I think we can get some interior pressure. And in terms of getting him to the ground, I don't think he quite has the same elite level getaway. That it's good, but I don't think it's quite what John Mateer brought to the table. And there were a number of times in that game that I saw last week against Eastern Illinois where they got hands on him and he was able to escape it. And it was similar situations to what we saw in the Apple Cup, where there were times we looked like we had the pocket collapsed and Mateer was able to get away. I don't didn't necessarily see quite the same level of escapability. So I do think we're going to be able to get him to the ground a little bit more. And I also think that we are going to present a much stiffer challenge from a secondary standpoint than anything that he has seen, and certainly a big key to the game and a challenge that I will put out there. I wish that I could attend, but I've got other things going on this weekend. Husky fans, bring it. This is a quarterback that, while talented and an impressive athlete, is making his second career start at Husky Stadium. That needs to be something that is remembered and not fondly. So, dog fans, let's do our part. I think, or do your part. I would if I was going to be there. But that's certainly also something that absolutely can play a factor in this game and get them off the rhythm. Offensively, they are pretty stout up front. We do need to get the running game going, but they have some questions on the back end, and there's definitely enough weapons on this team that we should be able to take advantage of that. Keep Will clean. Throw some of those, these guys are not going to beat Jeremiah to 50-50 balls consistently. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to be Denzel on 50-50 balls. Let your players make plays.
That was the other thing I was going to add. You guys both kind of touched on it, but Will Rogers, as good as he looked, he needs to trust his receivers a little bit more. He's waiting till someone's just wide open, where he just needs to. We have a couple guys that can go get it, and doesn't have to be. You don't have to have 5 yards separation. They can give him a chance to make a play, and it's okay if it gets batted down or something like that. I mean, they most likely won't let him intercept it. So yeah, he needs to trust his guys a bit more in some of those plays, like some 50-50 balls if we need to, and fades to the end zone. We have 2 guys. I mean, maybe 3 counter tight end that can make those plays.
Yeah. Or that was I think I said it in the group chat, not to go back to the Apple Cup again, but again, even with that play call, hell, throw a flat route to Kalecki and let him just basically post up with the fact that he is 6'7".
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's certainly something, and I will agree that with Scuzz that I think that Xander Muller is a very, very, very good linebacker. I think the weakness in his game is going to be more in coverage, and you could take with some of the athleticism and with a player like Kalecki Latu at 6'7", or some of the running backs with their mobility and Jonah's one cut and go ability. I think you can expose a little bit of that in the pass game as well. But I think this could be a game where we do a little bit more passing to set up the run rather than just force the run into the teeth of the strength of their defense. All right, well, I think we can get into our predictions for the game. Who wants to go first on this one? DJ, do you want to do a prediction, or are we? Do I see pictures starting to fade out there a little bit?
Oh no, it's
he
good
wasn't
now.
here
It's
for
good.
predictions. He didn't do predictions. He wasn't here last week for the Apple Cup, but he did predict Eastern. So I think we turned the tides from last year.
Yeah, I'm predicting.
maybe see now, DJ, you have to do a prediction every week because the one week now that you didn't, we lost. So
yeah, right.
Fair enough. You don't get to skip a pod for the rest of the year.
No.
Or if you can't make it, you've got to just send me the video and be like, and we'll just tack it on DJ's prediction right at the end.
There you go. There's a solution.
All right. So I think it's going to be a close game. We're the line or whatever. We're favored to win by 11 and a half, I think.
Half, yeah.
Yeah, I think we win. That would be my prediction. If I were to bet, I wouldn't say that we cover. I think it's going to be like a 1-score game or at least under 10 points. It's going to be nail biter. I mean, maybe I don't know if it necessarily comes down to like a last second play or something like that, but maybe come in we got to make a stop to win the game or something like that. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than we would want and hope for. But yeah, I think ultimately we come out with a W. I just haven't seen enough for me to be like super confident that it's going to be an easy victory. But we do have pieces that can make it there, but does it all come together? Does our coaching staff make the right play calls, make the right decisions? I haven't
avoid pianos falling from the sky.
Yeah, do we avoid penalties, things like that. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be that close of a game, with the caveat that I'm banking on the coaching staff being able to coach up and eliminate the penalties. If we eliminate the penalties, I think this is a 35-13 win. Because I do think that we have the ability to put up points on the secondary, like Hooligan was saying. I mean, their secondary is not going to beat Denzel and Jeremiah and Kalecki or Decker or any of our big guys on these 50-50 balls. And I think Jonah Coleman has shown against every opponent that we've faced so far, and against almost every opponent that he played last year at Arizona, that he can run on virtually anybody. So I think, with the assumption that these penalties are dialed in, I think this is 35-13 Washington.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to a similar mindset. I don't know if it gets quite that, for me, I don't think it necessarily gets quite that high. This one very much feels like, I think it's something that where it's relatively comfortable late, and I think and this is no disrespect to Northwestern, but I think, again, with a quarterback making a second start in a hostile road environment at Husky Stadium, which I expect to be loud, boisterous, raucous, you name it, because it should be. It's supposed to be a really nice day on Saturday. I think that there are things that Northwestern will do to have some success, and there are adjustments that we will have to make. I think we're starting to see with this coaching staff that certainly on the defensive side of the ball, we'll give up some stuff in the first half, and then they really start to kind of put the clamps on it in the second half. I think we'll figure out a way to. I don't think we'll completely stop Cam Porter in their running game, and I also would be remiss if I don't mention that they've got another good running back and a good kick. And a big key to this one for me is also going to be special teams coverage. We can't have a repeat of what we saw in the special teams last Saturday, because Joseph Hyman can go. Their kick returner. He's got the juice. So he can go, and that's something that we have to be very careful of. With that said, I think it's a pretty significant step up in class in terms of the defense that their quarterback is facing. I saw some passes even in the second half last week that, against a better defense, are going to either get knocked away or could be going the other way. I think we continue to see some improvement, and hopefully, just to Jacob, to your point, some cleaner play in the secondary. But I think this could be another game where we see a turnover or two in the opponent passing game. I do think the Huskies get into the 30s. This one, to me, I think if I had to call it, I think it's going to be one of those. I think it's 31-17, might even get to 34-17. I think that Northwestern's got enough, and with the mobility, one of the things that I'm keen on is certainly, like, what did we learn from defending Mateer last week, and can we apply that to containing Lausch if he decides to run and get outside? Can we get him to the ground if we have hands on him and not let him escape? So for me, I think it's 31-17 Dogs. I think it's pretty comfortable. I don't think it's a, oh my gosh, we're just back win. But I think we get the job done, and there's certainly positives to take from it without it being just we blew the doors off of them. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, I think these next two games are going to really show who we are for the rest of the season. We've got, obviously, a home game against, above average team, and an away game, an away environment against above average team. And, if we can show that, we can win the next two games and be legit about it, not just like, oh, we squeaked by some wins, that we got some things to look for the rest of the year. But yeah, if we look sloppy next two games, like, that might be who we are the rest of the year. Like, we're just kind of sloppy with penalties and decision-making play calls. So yeah, if we clean those up, which we can, then I think we, can look forward to the rest of the year. So I'm really, really interested to see how it goes. I'm going to be at the game, so if anyone planning on being there and listening, shoot me a DM. We can meet up or something.
All right, everybody. Any final thoughts, Jacob or DJ?
No, I think we're good. Go Dogs.
All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Go Dogs. We will be back to recap this one sometime next week. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Bow down.
Go Dogs.